really I want to thank the speakers, but I really want to go down on the ground. We'll take your word, Sarah, when you started saying that when we speak about women making peace, we should really not speak only about women's issues, but on the whole general issues that we want to address. In our situation, it's obviously that there are shrinking spaces. As long as we don't see that the problem now is that the continuing Israeli occupation, with the tolerance of the international community of this continuing Israeli military occupation on the 1967 occupation, is leaving no place, neither for any peace initiatives on part of men and women in our societies. In fact, now we're seeing that what kind of negotiations? We're losing hope about this two-state solution. And if you ask the people, only the last events in Palestine during the last uprisal are really reflecting how much we're losing hope. I'm a Jerusalemite. I'm a Palestinian living under occupation all my life, and I tell you, as long as we don't change that for the new generation, men and women, we're going to be really in this vicious circle. We should really think of how, even now, what kind of negotiations? Who's negotiating? Our participation? We are participating in public life and political life, but it's very limited on all aspects, not giving us any hope for really getting out of this vicious circle. I think we have really to put our priorities. It's true that we want 1325, and we're really diligently working on that. And it has been adopted by the Palestinian Authority, by the State of Palestine. It is now being translated into an action plan. But having said all of that, without real discussion of the core issues of the problem, the Israeli-Palestinian conflict, there's no place for me, neither to my colleagues from the peace movement in Israel or in the Palestinian movement to move forward, because the whole space is shrinking, even for our colleagues and friends from the peace movement in Israel, but also human rights organizations, and the whole environment is really creating more sufferings on both sides, but definitely we are under this oppression. Without really looking at these systems of oppression, all of them and how they're intertwined, and without saying that the real problem, the root problem is occupation, we're not going to change the situation. I'm sorry to be long on that, I know it's an intervention, but because we want to really put our feet on the ground. What we're talking about is not naive, we're not naive women. We're really involved in the daily life of our own societies, in the issues of our own people and our women and girls in our societies. To be realistic, we have to think of ahead of us how we're going to address the root problem of the occupation.
Thank you very much. I have one here.
Thank you. My name is Ulla Sandbeck. I'm a member of the Danish Parliament, and I've been living for 8 years, half a year at a time in Palestine. So I know something about it. I think it's wonderful that there is a dialogue between the women, but what is your access to the media? Because I know that very many Israelis have no idea whatsoever about what is going on in Palestine, and Palestinians mostly know Israelis as Israeli soldiers. So I think that if you want to broaden the mutual understanding, you really need to get a focus on the media so that ordinary Palestinians and ordinary Israelis will know a lot more about what is happening at the different sides. Do you have that media access?
Excellent, thank you. A quick question over here.
I'm Jennifer Freeman, the director of the Women Peacemakers program at the Joan B. Kroc Institute for Peace and Justice. My question is quick. I'm wondering about the impact of the anti-normalization movement for peace activists on both sides. Thank you.
Excellent, thank you. And then I just do have one intervention from the ambassador.
I'm the ambassador of Nicaragua, and I'm a member of the Bureau of Palestine. And I just want to support what my colleague from Palestine has just said. We can talk about resolutions, and we can talk about programs, and we can talk about exchange between the communities. But the main problem here is that we have to give the Palestinian people their state. Palestine has to have a state, and we in the international community have a great responsibility on this, but also NGOs and civil organizations have to move with their governments. We know who's behind the no for the state of Palestine in the Security Council. And we have to move those civil society organizations and NGOs in your different countries, to move your governments and to put your governments against the wall if you want. But we have to get them to approve the status of the state of Palestine at the United Nations. Thank you.
Thank you very much. So we have, I think, 2 questions and then questions that you want to make on the statements. And I do want to get another round of questions, so we'll be, if you want to.
I think it's very inspiring what the ambassador just mentioned, and I cannot agree more. And I think this goes along with what Brenda has been saying, and actually with my concluding remarks. I mean, I think so long as we are under occupation, both men and women and children are not going to be able to realize our potential and move forward. So any discussion related to women in particular would not be even at that high level of an agenda item. So there's no two-way about it, but to become a sovereign state so we can act as a sovereign state, a recognized state, and realize our more basic political rights as a nation. In terms of the anti-normalization on women's issues in particular,
On the ability for women's peace organizations to work together.
Big impact, big impact. I mean, and it goes to the media issue. I think the reason pre-intifada and pre-anti-normalization and pre-boycott and BDS and so forth, there was a lot of interaction. And we knew each other a bit better. Today, I mean, in East Jerusalem, it's gotten so bad with the roadblocks and the checkpoints and the so forth, and the seizure against Gaza and the blockade against Gaza, that we don't know each other. And even worse, from going from East Jerusalem to West Jerusalem. So you can imagine, and there are no roadblocks right there, but the psychological barriers have become so immense, and we don't know each other anymore.
Thank you.
Very much agree on that. Regarding the media, there are different organizations, part of the peace movement, part of the women's peace movement, that have more more influence on the media. I think it is important to remind that in Israel today, there is a newspaper, a daily newspaper that is distributed for free, and it's very right-winged, and it exposes a very certain story, a specific way of thinking, and it is distributed for free in the trains, at campuses, universities, so that has a lot of effect. I think that is very much part of the past years, maybe the even more shift towards the right. Regarding the anti-normalization, I very much agree on what Hiba said. It raises questions. It raises a lot of questions on our daily work, activities. It also raises internal thoughts, which I think is important to raise thoughts and to understand more of what our role. Specifically, the Coalition of Women for Peace works inside the Israeli society. So our main agenda and our main focus is to shift the Israeli society way of thinking, to take responsibility, to understand the occupation. So in that sense, I think, yeah, we're working inside and changing our reality. We're not a governmental organization. We have no connections with the government.
Okay, I know that there are many people who want to ask questions. I'm only going to take 2, and one is here, and then one was down at the end of the table. I'm sorry, we're running out of time.
I'm Amy Atchison from the AAW. Hi, I'm Amy Atchison from the AAW, and I am wondering about the role that women's organizations have played in opposing illegal settlements in the occupied territories. Thank you.
And I had one question down at the end.
Yes, a comment and a question. On behalf of UN Women, the Palestine Country Office, and the Coalition on 1325 of NGOs, is the coordinator. First of all, I think we've heard a lot about the importance of people-to-people diplomacy, track three, so on. But there's a missing step, because we have seen that this has not been extremely fruitful in the past. And that is building the constituencies within each of these societies for some kind of moving forward. So I think Israeli women who are feminists and voices for peace have a very big role to play in building a constituency within Israeli society, which is becoming more and more not open to discussion. And this is one of the big blockages to any kind of two-state solution and moving forward. And so opening this space within Israeli society for moderate views and an understanding of what the impact of occupations is very important. And then on the other side, within Palestinian society, there's a very important process where women need to be involved, and that is in the reconciliation between Fatah and Hamas, so that Palestine has a strong negotiation position of a unified government. And in the reconciliation committees, there isn't a lot of participation by women, and that's something very clearly that could bear fruit in the future. And I would just give the floor to the coordinator for 1325 to say more about what civil society is doing.
I speak Arabic and English as much as I can because of my language. But I'm Hiba Husseini from Palestine. I live in Ramallah, and I am the coordinator of 1325. About 1325.